recorded on VHS and downloaded to cassette for maximum audio quality.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Surf Shorts. I've got today with me Chal. What's up, dude?
How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Just so everybody knows, I think we Instagrammed this live. My son disappeared on me.
That's all right.
And we are in Surf City Surf Shop, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we're back in the lounge. You can't see it if you're watching this on YouTube. Behind you is a fireplace on the wall, drum kit,
Bass amp. That's a Fender Rumble 500.
Yeah, Well, I was thinking it was a tube amp, but now I see it's got a
man. They're back in the day, I used to carry around these amp pegs that the head weighed 80 pounds, and my back and chiropractor loved me for that. But nowadays that's 30 pounds and throw it in.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, I've always been on the bad side of music. Like when I was young and in a band, I played drums. Right. So I'm the guy hauling all the crap.
That's right.
And then later, I became a professional DJ, and then maybe I need to make air quotes around professional, but I was a DJ.
He made a living.
That's right, I did. I made some money DJing, and then I was hauling in stuff there. So, dude.
I have the truck in the band. So where do you think all the equipment went in? And it was heavy back then.
Yeah,
now
that's right.
Guys show up to gigs with a backpack.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's awesome.
A DJ shows up with a laptop and has 75,000 songs.
Yeah.
Hey, are we on Instagram Live, son? Did you get it rolling? 750,000 people following us right now. All right.
That's crazy.
That's just a guess. We could.
I'm
just rounding off. All right. So, hey, you got a bunch of stories, I know. We're trying to kind of filter through one to talk about. We're going to make it a true Surf Shorts. These stories, we're gonna keep it kind of short. But you're telling me you had a clothing line, right?
Yes, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was called Embryo Surf Company.
Embryo Surf Company.
And the whole point of that name was it was a point of commitment. Because once an embryo is born, you're committed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that was the threshold of commitment. And it was fun. We had some of the best guys on our team, and they all surfed really well, but you didn't have to do contests. And this is the late 90s.
It was free surfing. And
it was Henry Martin, Jacob Stackley, and Chris Forehand, and we had a bunch of people. There's a lot of names on there that probably aren't surfing as well. Those guys are, but there's some guys that went off to college and had families and did everything like that. But we had a good group of kids, but we had fun, and they were colorful characters.
Yeah, the kids keep it interesting, especially surf kids.
For sure, and these guys were like, I met my match.
Oh, yeah.
I met my match. I was a little bit older, but they were similar to me when I was their age, but we just had a vibe going. It was crazy.
Well, tell me about that time in the surf industry real quick, because a lot of people that listen to the show are kind of in our generation. Like, surfing had that super, super huge boom in the 90s, and like when we were in our mid-20s, man, surfing was going off.
That's right. And I started surfing when I was 8. It was 1981 or somewhere around there, and went through it. And the 90s did, and it kind of, when you got to the 2000s, it started to fizzle, because we did a booth and a trade show, and honestly, and our just the group and the pack that we traveled in, and the camaraderie that we had, it created this vibe. Our clothes were all right, but we used our surfers for the art. Like, there were pictures of them we would turn into art and do on T-shirts.
Sure.
Matter of fact, it being close to Cinco de Mayo, one was a Cinco de Mayo T-shirt with Henry Martin on it, and it was one of the coolest shirts we had. And Jacob Stackley, he had dreads, and he'd do these spin aerials and air verses, they call them now, but his dreads would fly out, and it was just so pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, that definitely makes a good picture. You can see the centripetal motion,
and it tells a story. And that's kind of what we try to do here at the shop. There are surf shops everywhere.
Yeah,
but if you don't have a story to tell, you don't really have much to give. We're a full service, like a full service gas station. We got Gary back there fixing and shaping boards, and we give lessons and do camps. And
there's a bay back there.
There is a bay back there. And
what label?
G. Wilson.
Okay.
It started out as kinetic surfboards, but it kind of evolved to the G. Wilson label, which he has boards up at Mike Barden's spot in
Sure.
Surf City and Ocean down in Charleston. So he's up and down, and as far as down to Florida and as far as Maryland,
Oh, yeah,
he's
you
got
gotta
boards
hustle.
up and down the East Coast for
You got
sure.
to hustle if you're making surfboards, man.
Well, and the price right, his whole point is to have the price right and a good quality board.
Yeah.
So that's his lane.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
does a good job at that.
So you got this embryo clothing company rolling,
Right.
And you got yourself some riders. You're trying to build your brand, or you're building your brand, and then you decide you're going to take all these guys to Central America.
That's right. So I got Jim Whitney. Was him and his wife Megan were photographers, and they kind of worked for ESM and got they were great photographers from around here, and they did some big things, but we all packed these kids up and went to Nicaragua. Back then, this was 2005, 6 maybe. We had to fly through Liberia, cross the border, go in.
So you're talking about flying into Liberia, Costa Rica.
That's right.
Hey, tell me about the airport at that point in time, because I haven't been to Costa Rica in a long time, and I stopped going when Liberia was still like there's chickens on the runway.
That's right, and that's the beauty of Nicaragua. It starts to evolve, but there's always dirt roads and chickens on the runway. And
Yeah,
cattle
yeah.
with the triangular.
The Brahmas.
Yeah,
right?
so they could get. It keeps them in the fence, but I never see them in the fence. Or always out road.
I got you. Like with something on their head that keeps them from.
Yeah, that's right. But
That's cool.
regardless, we flew into Liberia, which was nice, and some of the guys were already down there. So it was Jim Whitney and I, and we flew in and got a cab. Never had been there, and I literally, prior to going there, I had lived on a boat and sailed around the world.
Oh, wow. Circumnavigated?
Yeah,
or?
started in Portofino, Italy, and went all the way through and Amalfi Coast, Europe, South Pacific, Central America, surfed
You
Chopu.
transpacked?
Yes, went
Wow.
around and surfed everywhere. And
For people that don't know, it means you cross the Pacific Ocean. That's
Yeah.
a transpac. And that reference goes all the way back to Jaws for me.
well, and if you go back and listen to Crosby, Stills and Nash, the
Oh, yeah.
Southern Cross,
Yeah.
that song made total sense to me when I saw the Southern Cross.
I
You
hear
can
ya.
navigate south by that thing.
That is awesome.
It is due south. We were so far off the radar, we lost navigation. Like our GPS quit working.
Yeah.
But the whole point of that is when I did that and went to Nicaragua, I knew that was best bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Offshore winds, world-class waves. You didn't have to travel far. It wasn't that expensive. I could surf my brains out.
Yeah.
So with Embryo trying to make a name for themselves, we took team riders, photographer, and went down there. So Jim Whitney and I flew into Liberia. We got in a cab, and he had a goatee. I don't know if you know Jim, but goatee, long hair, and there's guards along the way. You have checkpoints.
Yep. And they're standing there with machine guns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
okay.
would look in and they're like, Bin Laden. Bin Laden, like, because he had the bigote.
Yeah.
He had the big beard, and we laughed at that. And Jim didn't know much Spanish. I knew enough to get us in trouble then.
For sure.
And then we crossed the border. You go in through this little brick one side, and he's got about $10,000 worth of photo equipment, which
Yeah.
back then was a lot.
It's funny you name that number because I have another guy on an earlier episode, and they're in Mexico '91, and literally what he said, he says, we had $10,000 worth of
And that's probably a ballpark
yeah
with probably
yeah.
a little more,
Yeah.
So he's kind of tripping. He doesn't know much Spanish. I know just enough to get us across the border. So we get in there. These guys are trying to take our bags once we cross, because you kind of go in. It's like a snake. You go in, check in, do your thing, come out the other side. And cabs can't go across the border.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So you have to walk about 100 yards to get to a cab, and we unknowingly did not know. So we kind of were like, what's going on? Get in there and get a cab, kind of figure out what it is. And then we have a 3-hour drive, right? So that along the way is where the checkpoints were.
Right.
You've been Laden, they're joking. Come to find out, the best way to do is come through with Playboys and cigarettes, and you're good. But I didn't know that till afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we get to this place called La Tica, which we later dubbed La Stinka. It was we were there for 10 days, and you ate 3 meals there. You drank. You ran a tab.
Right.
Room and board.
So it's like a surf camp.
I wouldn't call this a surf
Yeah,
camp.
yeah. Not like modern
Hilton.
surf camp.
It was a place to go at that time.
Right.
And it was like, I think it was like $100-something. Like the whole, everything, all inclusive.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but I got sick as a dog first trip and decided to buy property on that trip. So that was how much I loved it. But we went there. The waves were firing. We pull up right at dusk, and all the surfers there, and you can hear the waves. Like, we didn't know where we were. Now I do. I've been down there 17 years.
Yeah.
I have a house there, take our family there.
Cool. That's awesome.
But the first time down, I don't know, Donald Stone is a name that was from Emerald Isle,
Okay.
North Carolina, great surfer. But, his son, Dylan Stone, is up there as well. Great surfer. But Donald's lived down there about 20 years. And Donald was a photographer there at the time. He had decided he was going to live there. We roll up. It's getting dark. We get dropped off at this random, we don't know where we are.
Right.
And it kind of reminded me of Chopu, Teapu, however you want to pronounce it. It's the end of the road.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Tahiti, but that is. You drive to the end of the road and there's a break. Same thing with this hotel. It was actually across the river mouth. It's Guasacate. Right across is Popoyo. But they called it Popoyo just because that's what you wanted to hear and know. But now, technically, it was Guasacate. We get there and it's thumping. Like, you can hear, and it is the biggest swell they'd had in 25 years.
Is it dark?
It's getting dark.
Right, okay.
So by the time we check in and get our hotel, Donald Stone's in the restaurant. So you've got this U-shaped hotel, and in the middle is kind of table, chairs, and they serve you food there. Everybody, we show up, and you could cut the tension with a knife. It was huge. Like,
okay.
And we kind of peek around and look at the pictures, and we're like, this is what we're getting into at sunrise tomorrow.
Right.
And mind you, I had literally sailed around the world and surfed waves, so my mind was straight with big wave surfing.
Yeah, but it's always good to ease into it if you haven't been in big waves in a while. It's nice to get a couple of days of warm up.
I can tell you what, I don't go to Outer Reef anymore, but back then I used to go to Outer Reef. So we went there and looked at it, and you could hear it just crash. And we went up the next day. I mean, it's triple overhead and just the normal inside Popoyo. So there's an outer reef out to the left. So one of my team riders, Henry Martin, crazy as hell, and loves big waves, had been out there. He was there a couple days before us, and it was like Surfer Magazine was there, boats, photographers,
the works.
And we got the leftovers, and I don't say they were trashy leftovers. I mean, it was. He tapped me one morning. He's like, I brought a 610. And he's like, you want to go out there? I was like, sure. So we paddle out in the channel. I have to take a pause and throw up and relieve myself. And like, oh, great. So we get out there. It's just the two of us. We surf for like 2 hours, caught 4 waves.
Wow.
And a boat came by, dropped in, caught a couple. But I mean, it was 20+ foot faces.
Yeah. So this 4 hours, this 4 waves in 2 hours, is this just you being cautious and making sure you got the right way?
This was my second day there.
Yeah, like you're not getting the first wave of a set.
No.
You're not getting anything you're not sure about.
Just trying to figure it out. That's right.
Yeah.
And just kind of just in awe. It was perfectly huge. It was huge. And the way that thing is, what's so funky about that break is it bends on this reef, so you'll get this wave and you the safest place is in the barrel. But it bends, and you kind of like, should I straighten out? Like, what to do? So it kind of is a head game. And over the 15, 20 years being down there, a lot of Hawaiians come through there, and we've snorkeled the reef. It's a gnarly reef.
Yeah.
There's caves. Great lobster to get off there. But,
that's cool.
Yeah. But it's a funky reef, and it's shallow. So over time, you see guys wearing, protective gear who charge it.
Yeah, helmet.
Yeah, helmet, chest plate, and all that. And then we start to learn the numbers. If this direction, like these guys, Robert Gregory, God rest your soul, he was from Outer Banks guy, he lived there. His 2 kids, Marsh and He's got 2 sons there that run Two Brothers Surf Camp. Those guys charge it all the time, but they know the window.
Right.
These numbers mean this many
Yeah.
wipeouts. These numbers mean this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And those guys charge it. So it's a temperamental break, but I was kind of done at my big wave surfing at that end. And even the inside's big and there's other breaks there, but I've surfed, a lot of places around the world, and that place is challenging.
So what do these kids do? I mean, you're on this outer reef. You're not dragging a bunch of. I don't care. They can be hot shots. It's a different thing. That's a different thing.
Absolutely. So one of the kids did it. The rest of them didn't. So after that, I went out with Henry. It was just the 2 of us, which to this day he probably didn't even know it, but it's one of the most memorable moments of my life because we came back exhilarated, like adrenaline pumping through our veins. It was firing on the inside. We just watched people surf all day.
Yeah.
We surfed for a few hours and we were done, and it was as good as.
You're like, I've already done it.
We just, I couldn't. My adrenal glands were tapped, but so get back on track. There were some kids down there we met. It was about 10 of them. And that day it kind of resolved because one thing about Nicaragua is like if it's too big, it only holds in certain places, right?
Sure.
So the swell dropped and it was good. And we surfed, these places. Some were secret spots back then that are now well-known places.
Yeah.
And Rosada, Left Point Break, secret spot. Santana, nobody out. Like we surfed these places with nobody out.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
It was really, really cool and a special time, and we didn't know what we had in our hands, But we went and did, we did a bunch of shooting. I unfortunately got sick, so I was out for a few days. But
the water? Was it from the water?
No, you never know. Like it could be from salads.
Yeah.
They don't they don't wash it. They don't.
It was from food.
It was from something.
Yeah, like a dysentery type
They
of
recycle
thing.
bottle beers.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
It's happened to me twice in 15 years. It happens.
Yeah.
But I got sick. And so much so, like I said earlier, like it didn't steer me off. I was like, this place is awesome.
Yeah.
Bought 2 acres and ever since it's been on. But that trip in particular, we were shooting for Embryo. These are my team riders. And we went in, caught some really good surf, got some great footage. And then my partner who's down there who introduced me to property,
Right.
was like, hey, I'm building, you should. I was like, I'll buy this property right beside you. So I did. But then after we would, had been down there, been to the rodeos, surfed, like we were just burnt, stoked out of our mind. And so we have to go back. We have to go back to Costa Rica, right?
How long have you been there at this point?
We had been there, I think it was about 10, 12 days. We've been there for a while. Some of them had been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks going at it. You're exhausted.
Yeah, and might I add, the hotel it's funny. The hotel we had no electricity.
Nice.
So
yeah.
we slept and we stuck to our mattress. I mean, it
Yeah.
was horrible.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
The funny thing is, they had it was the bathroom. You wanted to go early in the morning, and it was not sewer. It was
Right.
just
Yeah,
a
you
hole in
didn't
the
want it
ground.
to get hot.
Well, and the first morning I got there, I hadn't even been to Nicaragua. I opened up the toilet seat, and my sticker for Embryo is on the toilet. So my clothing line made it there before I did.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like
yeah.
in the shitter. I was like,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is. It made it before I did.
Yeah,
It
classy
might have been-
stuff.
yeah. So that was the irony of that. And then it was game on, and we surfed. And then the funny thing is, it went on shore, and it was huge. And we tried to surf it, and it was like crazy because of a hurricane. It doesn't go on shore; it's offshore 300 plus days out of the year. But a storm had come across and created, we caught the first part really good, and then it just. And we hung out with these Aussies, these Australians.
Aussies are everywhere.
Oh my God, man! And we played cards, and we showed them they laughed at our slang, we laughed at theirs. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And they went on to El Salvador, and they reported back to us, and I sold one of them a board of mine. But anyway, so that was kind of our thing. And then once we had to cross over, a good friend of mine who was living there starting to set up camp.
So you're coming back now to Costa Rica to get on a plane and leave.
That's right. And the word was, don't cross at night.
Right.
So I've got Jim with $10,000 of photography equipment. I've got a bunch of groms that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Trying to get them across. So we get detained at the border for a minute.
Yeah.
My buddy had rented a flatbed truck to move materials to build a house. He did not know from a well-known bandito.
So he hadn't just rented a truck from a company.
Yeah.
Whoever he had to rent this truck from is someone that's known to not be on the up and up.
That's right. And they made up the rules as they went along.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, a gringo with money. Let's shake him down a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I've been shook down. Yeah.
That's right. So they were going to kind of detain him. And we were at a crossroad. Like, do we wait? I got to get these guys across. It's getting dark. We need to cross because our plane flew out like 5 the next morning.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation. And he's like, just go. I'll get this figured out. So I get the kids across the border. I say kids. They're still kids, but they were you know, I don't know. They're kids, but they were peers at the same time.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, I look up to them as surfers. They're great surfers. But we cross over. It was very stressful. I think a couple of them went into the pharmacy, maybe got some relaxation pharmaceuticals.
We'll chill out a little bit.
So me and Jim are the older guys. We get to Liberia. We're going to go to bed. There's a Mexican restaurant or a Latin restaurant across the street or a bar. So the youthful go over there after they had been to a pharmacy. And they go and do whatever. We went to bed.
Yeah.
And I get a knock on my door about 4:30 in the morning from the security guard. He's like, yeah? He's like, is this... He points behind him, and he's like, is this guy with you?
Is this your responsibility?
Yeah. And I look over, and it looks like a deer trying to walk for the first time, like a fawn, like trying to stand up.
Oh, he's got on one roller skate.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. I was like, get in here. Get in the room. So I had to round them up, and we got everybody round up, but it was definitely...
Yeah,
like,
so your buddy's still stuck in Nicaragua.
Yeah, he gets across. So we're driving back, and we reach out to his dad and stepmom, and just to kind of say hey. And we're like, Mike didn't make it back, and they're like, what? And we're like, well, he rented a truck, he's building a house. And they're like, wait, what? He owns property in Nicaragua? And I was like, yeah.
I kind of thought you might have already known this.
Yeah, and they were not happy at that point. But eventually it came out, and he now has an amazing Nika Waves, great resort. You know, we don't have to worry about banditos.
Yeah.
We got family that works that place. And, you know, trucks, boats, all that.
Sounds like a very interesting phone call, though, to inform someone's parents.
There was a long
detained.
pause, for sure. It was like, yeah, he was detained at the border, and, you know, she was like...
Yeah, hey, listen, don't worry. He's just detained by a border officer in Central America. No big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
And they go to India a good bit, so they're kind of similar. You know, they're Mayor Baba. So they were they were familiar with that, but it was definitely one for the books. And there was, there was a magazine out of Wilmington.
Juice.
No, was it Surfline or Surf? I'll have to think of it. But they did an article on this whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And it was the first year I was trying to get my label going. I was a freelance writer. So I wrote the article, and we did a booth that year. It was 2004 at the Surf Expo in Orlando.
Sure.
And that whole magazine came out, and people I didn't know came by, and they're like, that is one of the funniest articles I've ever read. Yeah. You know, and it was just, and that was the whole point of like our team. You didn't have to compete. Yeah. You just needed to be a colorful character. Do your thing. Yeah. Have fun. And
so how long, before we close it up, like how long did you keep that clothing brand
So
open?
we had it from like the late 90s to about 2007-ish, because my two partners had kids.
Right.
I was the last one to have a son. I was on the road repping West Wetsuits, pushing my clothes. That was good, and we had momentum. It was working. We were from Florida to Maryland, and then I had a son.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go on the road anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah,
I kind of stopped. But the joke is
that's what y'all do to us.
That's right.
I'm pointing off camera to my son right now.
Yep. Y'all have no idea what we do for y'all, but you'll realize it one day. But the funny thing is, people bring it up all the time. Like, you got to do it. And I have a container full of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we were lucky. We had a girl that worked for Heather App, which was Puma.
Right.
And a girl that worked for Roxy, a designer out of Charleston.
Nice.
And they worked freelance. They designed stuff. We had like clothes made, like samples.
Well, listen, here I'm sitting in Surf City Surf Shop, Myrtle Beach. It seems like you could just set up a display and just get with it.
I could.
You got a container full
I
of
think
clothes.
I know. People are like, you got to bring that back. So I might have to do it.
That's right. Well, hey,
for
brother.
sure.
Thank you so much,
appreciate you
man. I
coming
really
by.
appreciate it.
Good, for sure.
All
We
right.
can shake. COVID's
That's
over.
right.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man.
All right. Peace.
All right, y'all, listen. I say surf, you say shorts. Surf.
Shorts!
Surf.
Shorts!
I say, wait a minute. I think that pretty much covers it.